there is a prosperity that we have when we meditate. Now, this is not the prosperity gospel. I know that there are some churches out there that say you just love God and everything will go perfectly. Right. Yeah, that works. Now, everything is better than if you didn't love God. But this is not the prosperity gospel. But let me tell you, this meditating, prioritizing meditation, right under pursuing wisdom, you say, I need to get my thinking right. You know what? It's interesting. I tell people this. I say, if you actually look at the progression of sin, look at the progression of sin. It all starts with what you think in your mind, right? Nobody ever accidentally speeds down the road, necessarily. You understand? I mean, when they're doing 100 miles an hour, they're doing that for a reason. For some reason, they're thinking a certain way, which makes them do something. When a person violates the law, when a person commits sin, there is a reason. It all precipitates right here in the thinking, in your meditation. What's in your meditation? What are you thinking about? And Psalm chapter 1, verse 1 through 3 is a really well-known psalm. Many people have memorized it, but some of you don't know it, so I'm going to read this. Ready for this? Psalm 1, 1 to 3. Blessed is the man. It's the word happy, okay? Happy. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of the sinner, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. Okay, so there's a progression here. What you see is a person who's walking, they're standing, and then they begin sitting. Okay, that's the progression downward. Notice the people. First they were ungodly, then they were sinners, and now they're scornful. Okay, so there's a progression here. So happy is the man that doesn't do that. Okay, verse 2. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Now this is wonderful. Because you could draw a picture of this. You could draw a picture of a tree planted by the rivers of water, right? What happens when a tree is no tree does good in the desert except the cactus, right? We're talking about a tree planted by water. And it's going to bring forth fruit in its season. That means it's going to produce at the moment that it's supposed to produce. And his leaf also shall not wither. I mean, this is really showing you the person in verse 2, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, the person who delights in the law, who's excited about God's word, and who thinks about it, that's the word meditate, who thinks about it day and night, he'll have prosperity. Now, this isn't necessarily financial prosperity, but it does say whatsoever he doeth will prosper. So I can't just neglect that. I think that the person who pursues God and meditates on godly wisdom will be more prosperous than someone who doesn't, if you had an option. Look at Joshua 1:8. Joshua 1:8. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou shalt observe to do according to all that is written therein, for then thou shalt make thy way prosperous. There we see it again. We see prosperity. Prosperity is brought to somebody whose law, God's law, does not depart from thy mouth. It means he keeps it in, and he meditates, he thinks about it all the time, day and night. Prosperity is brought to the one who prioritizes meditation in their life. That's prosperity. And listen, when we're not thinking about godly things, we're not prospering. When we're not thinking about the right things, the people who don't think aren't necessarily the successful ones. It's the ones that do think. Recently, there's been something on Facebook's been floating around. What's it called? Where they're putting these packets of, what's it called? The Tide Challenge. That is just so stupid. You ever see that? They're putting these Tide packets, these kids, and they're filming themselves. They're putting these Tide packets in their mouth, and they're biting down on it. You know, some of these kids are dying. You realize that? There's no success there. To the person who doesn't think, no success. But success comes from the innovators, the ones who are thinkers, ones who are actually digging deep and meditating. I suffice it to say, I think that the student who studies more does better generally, unless you're a savant and you don't need to study. You just kind of just wake up one morning, you're kind of like me. No, I'm just kidding. It's terrible. I'm like the opposite of that. Opposite for sure. How often should we meditate? Well, David and Joshua says that it should be done day and night. It should be done all the time. Filling your mind with the right things all the time leaves less room for the wrong things. We've got to fill our minds all the time with the right thing, all the time with the right thing. Because I tell you what, there is no verse in the Bible that says that the idle mind is the devil's playground. But you know the principle is there. The principle is absolutely there. When we're not thinking about something, guess what? Satan loves that, because he'll fill your mind with something that's garbage. We should be doing this all the time. It's interesting that we should ponder, that we should consider, that we should think about. In Luke chapter 2, verse 9, 19, when the angelic appearing happened at the time of Jesus' birth, this is what it says in verse 19. Mary kept all those things and pondered them in her heart. This is great. Luke 12, 22 to 23, this is Jesus talking to his disciples, and he said unto his disciples, therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life. Don't ponder on that. Don't think about that. How many of you take thought for your life? You think about, oh Lord, how are we going to provide? That's exactly the wrong question to ask. The right question to ask is, Lord, oh, how are you going to provide? And oh Lord, I see how you're providing. He says, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat, neither for the body, what you shall put on. The life is more than meat, and the body is more than raiment. In verse 24 of Luke 12, Jesus says, consider the ravens. I put food in their bellies. Verse 27, he says, consider the lilies of the valley. Consider the lilies. I clothe all of them. He says, is your life not more than the ravens and the lilies? Don't think about how you're going to provide. I want you, though, to consider something. Don't leave your mind empty. Fill it with something. Well, what should you fill it with? Fill it with God's Word. You know, Christianity is a thinking religion. By the way, I use religion loosely, but let me just, can I say this? I think there are a lot of critics and skeptics out there who think that Christians don't think. That's what they think. I mean, that's true, though. That's what they think. They think that Christians don't think. And let me just say this. I think that the wisest and the smartest men that I know, and women, are biblical scholars. God has not said, oh, don't worry about it. You just take it by faith and just don't believe anything I say. That's why in 1 Thessalonians 5, he says, prove all things. That's why we're supposed to study the Scriptures, to show ourselves approved unto God. A workman that needeth not be ashamed, but rightly dividing the word of truth. That's why the Bereans in the book of Acts, they searched the Scriptures to see whether these things were so. See, God doesn't just say, just don't even think about it, it's fine, take it by faith. Don't use your brain. He says, no, I want you to use your brain. I want you to think. So many skeptics and critics out there say, oh, it's not a thinking man. I mean, that's hogwash. Smartest people I know are biblical scholars.